I welcome you all on this show organized by GETI, that is Global Education Institute for the training. I am Sapna Srivastava, Principal at City International School, Ruchikhand Branch, Lucknow. Today, I welcome most eminent speaker guest of our on the session, that is Mr. Jitesh Khanna. I have the opportunity to host him. He is from Delhi and he is a director, entrepreneur, motivator, writer, and also a blogger. That's nice, Mr. Khanna. We will be discussing on the topic succeeding in crisis. As we know that in today's pandemic, we all are fighting for the survival. So, keeping this in mind, Mr. Khanna is going to give his valuable views for the success in this crisis. So, I thank you, Mr. Jitesh Khanna, again and welcome you on our session. So, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sapna ji. Thank you so much, Getty, for offering me this wonderful platform. And your organization has been vastly working on the education in the education field, and has been able to achieve such tremendous success in such a short time. And such rave reviews I've heard about you people. So I felt it was a great pleasure and a privilege to be here and talk to you people. So today we are talking about disruptive education. Also, we are going to address something which is currently happening, the COVID crisis, and basically how the education sector can really from here revolutionize. I will not say evolve, but evolution is pretty slow. But this time it is time for revolutionizing the entire education sector. So, sometimes in the second week of March, the state governments across the countries began shutting down schools and colleges temporarily as a measure to contain the spread of COVID-19. So last few months, we have seen this pandemic take over the entire country, take over the entire world with a surprise, by a surprise. And, these measures were taken by the governments to, the curtail the spread of novel coronavirus. And it's been close to a month and there is no certainty when will they reopen. So this is a very crucial time for education sector. Board examinations, nursery schools, admissions, entrance tests of various universities and competitive exams, among others, are held during this particular session. So at this session, something like this happening has been a very, for some, it has been devastating, but then the institutes have coped up. So, children are very susceptible to infections. And education institute being crowded places where social distancing actually goes for a toss. And colleges and schools were being shut down simply because of this reason only. Because parents were very worried about their children. And children, of course, are very precious to us. So overall, the COVID crisis has directly influenced the education sector badly. So, and as the day passes by and the days pass by, there is no solution for it. So if you ask me, is there a short solution against this? There is none, but we are working on it. So, now if you expect the schools or colleges or institutions to go back to the same the way they were running initially or earlier, I don't think that's going to happen. So, now things are definitely going to change. If you expect things to come back to normal again, there are going to be new norms, new normals that are going to happen. They will have to adhere to norms of social distancing. Students and facility will have to ensure guidelines are given, and authorities will implement different laws, and extensive sanitizations will happen. Common areas of schools and all these places will be sanitized if and when the schools open. And when this crisis appeared and the schools were shut down, only a handful of schools were ready to take care of this. They could adopt to online teaching methodology. So if you see, India primarily is school education is very little online, except for a few courses that we do. But a lot of offline schooling happens, which is the only way in India. And when this thing happened and we had to switch to online, a lot of schools were not ready for it. And gradually, the schools started picking up. Governments also were very, very supportive in this. And a lot of new things came up. And then wonderful initiatives like open source learning solutions and all these things came up, and softwares came up that were adopted by teachers, by schools, and government of India really supported this. And teachers then had access to aids like lesson plans, worksheets, activities, so they were able to create enjoyable classroom experiences. My own son, who's in 8-year old, and he was able to study online because of his school's shutdown, and I thoroughly watched him. And when I was watching him, I realized there were a lot of pros and cons of online education. Of course, because it is at a very nascent stage in India. But to be very frank, Sapnaji, I'm actually very hopeful that this pandemic might just be an opportunity for Indian education system to become absolutely world class. We've always had one of the best education systems in the world. Students from our IITs, IIMs have been exceptionally good. They've been able to create enormous amount of businesses, products, valuable, contributions to the education field, to the business world. If you see most of the great software companies around the world, majority of their people are Indians, Indians technocrats, Indian software engineers. So we have been always been at this forefront of education. If you see, India is primarily a society where the moment a child is born, the first thought that comes to a parent's mind is how to educate the child and how to save the money for education. And we have a society where doctors, lawyers, engineers are something which are which is now, if of course it has become an old norm, there are new things that are coming up. MBAs have also become something of the past. So many new specialized courses are coming, disruptive things are coming. Entrepreneurship education has just started some time back, thanks to the current government, which is really focused on the entrepreneurship. But it is a long way to go. I really feel this adversity, again, like a very common word, I always use that adversity is an opportunity. So this adversity has become an opportunity for disruptive education in the education field. So we have to understand the world was initially in something called industrial age, where the great amount of resources would go into industries, and the great amount of wealth, technology, and all sorts of disruptive ideas came out of the industrial field. Now we are going towards something called a digital age, a truly digital age. It is the information age. So instead of industrial, past, we will have a very digital, educational, technological age in the future. And for that, we have to be ready. So we have noticed that certain apps have come which are, not at all involved in physically in certain industries, but rule the industries. Like a lot of cab apps, you see, they don't own taxis, but they are disrupting the entire industry. The hotel accommodation apps that have come, they don't own hotel rooms or anything, but they're able to disrupt the entire. Is the same way I think the time for education has come, where I believe the education will less focused on creating huge campuses or creating some sort of facilities, but rather more on a mixture of both, where you will have on the one side great facilities, high-tech facilities, which will be created, of course, because the time is changing. So once Sapnaji will be out of this, we'll realize that the schooling will completely change. So it is going to be a hybrid model where a part of education will be online and a part of education will be offline, and it is not going to go back again. And another great thing that will happen is that the shift of the shift that will happen, uh, it will take the load off the classrooms. And what will happen is that the students in the classroom will be limited because of social distancing. We will not have classroom filled by students. Like initially we have a class which has around 30, 40, 50 students. We will rather have classrooms with lesser amount of students. Institution will may be required to open 7 days a week. They will work around the year, 365 days, and they will have slots where students will come. So a certain batch will come at a certain slot, keeping in mind the social distancing, and certain batch will come in this. And then this is what I'm saying. Hybridization will happen where the campuses will be sanitized, the campuses will be not overcrowded, where they will have strict rules, and at the same time, a lot of the stuff will go into softwares. So at a very younger age, I started teaching my son on an iPad on apps which were good at mathematics, basic mathematics, apps which were good at developing skills, apps which were good at developing knowledge. And he found them very much fun. बच्चे तब तक कोई भी चीज नहीं करते हैं unless they find joy out of things. And once you add joy to something, an activity, the activity itself becomes amazing. So in the coming age, I really believe it is the time for India. So worldwide, we have seen a lot of apps coming up. There are a lot of wonderful platforms like Khan Academy. There are wonderful platforms in India also. But they have been largely able to penetrate a certain niche market. Now I feel is the time where people will actually start working on really, really wonderful ideas on how to teach children through these innovative apps. That's going to be something very wonderful. I would not say this is disruptive. I would say this is disruptive in terms of India. So India, in terms of education, global education standards, we have our own boards. We have now IB in India. But then again, it is not very rampant. You don't see happening everywhere. Whereas now I feel that the entire India will be working on the lines of a hybridized system where they will have an international set of education system online, plus offline they will be having the very conventional way with, of course, all the new norms and everything. So now also I feel that many new e-learning players will offer multiple courses. And right now also, if you see, I was also recently checking a wonderful course by Yale University. So this was a particular course on happiness. I wanted to do this so that I can talk to a lot of school students and talk about happiness and all those things. So I feel that a lot of international players are now going to get into India, and they will come out with these collaborations with a lot of universities. They will come out with these collaborations with a lot of schools, and they will be able to offer a lot of wonderful platforms for them to be able to study things from all the corners of the world. So if you understand, education has no limit. And if you see, some countries are good at educating something, some countries are good at educating something, some countries are very good at bringing out the happiness aspect of children. They're able to do activities and things where children can really, really bring out the joy from within. So now I feel that we will be able to bring all those platforms together in one roof, under one education system, and bring that value to children. So another one thing that I was just laughing and about was that the parent-teacher meetings will be more accessible now. So there'll be a direct feedback. So the parents can definitely directly get in touch with teachers and get direct feedback of their children, which is not a very good news for children, because parent-teacher meeting is something that we were all always anxious about as a kid. But for parents, it's going to be a very transparent system where they'll not have to wait for a day in a month or a week or on a few months where they would go to a teacher, take direct feedback about their children. Rather, this would be a very wonderful direct one-to-one sessions, feedbacks. And I'm sure that a lot of schools will be working on this, where children will get, uh, valuable feedback from their teachers through their parents. The parents and teachers will be connected more often. They'll be talking, sharing stuff. The parents will be able to share their own heart with the teachers. So so I have immense respect for teachers. So in the entire education field, if you ask me, the education field itself is a very I really feel it's a very holy field. It's a field where you develop the future of people. You create people, you create societies. If you want to see the society of a country, you have to go and check their universities and schools. And India is the youngest nation in the world. I mean, we are so lucky that we are the youngest people. We are the youngest nation in the world. So much of youth waiting to grow up and take charge of the nation. And the charge is the lead or the entire mission of this lies in the hands of teachers. So teachers are extremely, extremely important. They're extremely wonderful. And if parents can regularly be in touch with teachers, appreciate them, and the teachers can regularly take feedback from parent and know the psychology, physiology, the background of a student, they'll be able to create better students. That's what I feel. Of course, for that, we'll need to train teachers more. We'll have to have plans, better plans. I'm sure Government of India and a lot of other organizations are coming with wonderful plans to train teachers. And some plans have come recently because a lot of teachers had a lot of difficulty transitioning from offline classes to online classes. Initially, a lot of apprehensions were there, but teachers and teachers, they're basically people who teach, and their learning curves are wonderful. So they've been able to learn these things. So one of the things that I feel is going to be a really big thing in future is going to be training for teachers on how to handle online softwares and online platforms. Also, talking to a person is a different thing, but talking to a camera is altogether a different thing. Even when I started doing a lot of online projects and online sessions, initially I also had a lot of I would say nervousness facing a camera, because to face a human being is altogether a different thing. To face a camera is altogether a different mindset you need. So there are a lot of training will go into that. In terms of science stream, a lot of our students require labs and laboratories to work, and they need a lot of apparatus to work with. So there are a lot of international platforms that are there where you can do lab activities on open source softwares, and on virtual laboratories, on interactive laboratories, and a lot of new technologies like augmented reality is there now. VR has become very common. So in the gaming world, VR has become a very big thing. In the movie world, VR has just entered, and VR is really growing. Virtual reality. So I think that in future, a lot of lab activities will be done through augmented realities and virtual reality platforms, and there'll be a great way. So you understand, you will not have to invest heavily into uh, labs and facilities, rather into softwares. And softwares are a very flexible thing. Once you develop a software, it can be replicated and sold to so many people, or given to so many people, and can be used. So again, I feel that there are a lot of resources will be saved, and a lot of people will be able to do a lot of. So if you see the automobile industry, in the older days, they would develop a prototype, then they would crash test it, then they would crash test it again and again just to check it. They would do an aerodynamic check. I know people who are in an automobile industry will relate to what I'm saying. Now there's such amazing softwares that you can do crash test on simulation. You can check the aerodynamics or the coefficient of drag on a computer. So in the same way, these softwares will come where I feel that students will be able to combine virtual labs. They will become able to combine illustration, animation, videos, YouTube videos, AR, VR, and they'll be able to do a lot of lab work. This would be really disruptive. So rather than getting up, dressing up, and going to a lab, you can be at your own place, in your own desk, on your own office, and you can be dressed as whatever way you are, sit on a computer, and do stuff that you want to do. And then you'll be able to devote more time. Because in our country, a lot of time is lost in traveling. So if you see, I see a lot of schools where children spend at least 2.5 hours just traveling in a day, which is minimum, and which can go up to 3 hours, depending on the distance. I feel that the disruptive part would be where children can be saving that time of traveling into doing a lot of valuable work, spending time with their families and studying. So it is going to be a hybrid model. Like I said, it's not going to be completely online, but children will have a lot of time in hand to do a lot of experiments, a lot of good stuff, a lot of learning. Also, I feel that the learning would be made very, very interactive, very much fun. So if you see, if you show, this has been widely seen in the education industry. When we do an audiovisual presentation of something or show an AV to a child, the child runs faster. It is easy to grasp. So I feel in online, one of the greatest advantages will be that the education sector, a new education sector will be born. And this education sector will be primarily focused on online learning and making online learning as much fun as possible. Maybe by creating, for little children, you can create cartoons of stories on history. So rather than reading a history book, you have an entire small story of a history book happening in front of you, and it's easier to grasp and learn. So if you see, Sapnaji, what I'm trying to tell you is that I am very optimistic from this crisis. So when this crisis happened, initially initially I did a lot of thinking, but the more I reflected on it, the more I pondered on it, I felt this is such a great opportunity for our education system to democratize. So a democratic education system is which is open to all, easily accessible to all, which is not elitist. I, for one, being a social activist also, I'm absolutely against elitism in education. You know, when somebody says, "Oh, I've been to so and so university," and you just been to a regular place, I really don't like this whole idea where I feel education should be very democratic. Your social standing, your background, your family, your wealth should not dictate the education you're getting. The education should be open to all. And that is what online education can really do. Then it comes to examination. One of the things that has been really widely I've read in the newspapers about examination, how to conduct them. So I don't think there is a big rocket science in that. A lot of worldwide, lot of exams happen online. And in the same way, we can have, keeping in mind social distancing or probably at home, we can have examinations happening online on computers where a foolproof mechanism can be developed through softwares, through cameras. You know, like every camera, every phone, every thing has a built-in camera nowadays, a front-facing camera. So you can keep a check on the child. At the same time, you can have a system where that can be, have examination, which a child can really get access to, and this way, it's just an idea, but I feel in this way we can come out with ways where we can really teach, where we can really cater to this part of the schooling, the examination part, which is the most important part. uh, then you know, a lot of other ideas have coming up. I've been talking to a lot of wonderful people. I've been talking to a lot of school staff. So initially I was told that when they started this, they had a lot of problem in terms of reaching out to children. So there are a lot of children who come from the EWS section of society, that section of society which is working very hard to give education to their children. There are a lot of parents I have met who have not had education, a proper formal education, but they have ensured no matter what their children should get education. And and they've been able to send their children to good schools because of the quota and all those things, which is I feel is very wonderful. I feel again democratization of education. Everybody should be able to get education. So one of the questions that they have come up with is that, or the challenges they have come up with is that a lot of times they're trying to reach out for online education and they have realized that the children don't have good access to internet, or children don't have access to a computer, a laptop, or they don't have access to a smartphone. A lot of parents still use feature phones because they are very cheap and they can't afford. And I'm talking about a good maturity of children, and how schools are working in terms of creating these in ways and means to reach out to such children. I also feel that the government can definitely intervene. So a lot of companies give education, these student discounts on laptops. So I feel if there can be student discounts on internet connectivity, if the government can ramp up the internet services all over India, where we can have wonderful internet. I'm sure Sapna ji can relate to this. Sometimes we want to do wonderful meetings. Sometimes we want to talk to people, and the internet is so slow that we are not able to have a
Sure.
wonderful
Right.
one-to-one conversation with them. So I feel that we need to really work and talk to the government, talk to the concerned ministries about creating a system where we can have good broadband widely available in you know, in clusters, joggi joping clusters, and clusters where children can access studies. Also, if the children can be given certain budget tablets or budget devices. I remember certain companies were coming up with really cheap budget devices, $50, $30 devices, $100 devices, but of course subsidized devices where children can have, and then these devices should primarily be such that they can only be used for education purposes. So of course you will not see them getting misused, and the children can use these platforms to access that education. So the government has to put in that. I feel a lot of CSR can go into it, a lot of corporates can go and work into this and produce this kind of a stuff. Coming back to the teachers, or we can call them the teacher warriors. So, you know, the teachers really rose to this occasion. I had a wonderful, you know, communication talk with a lot of wonderful teachers, and they were able to share a lot of insight with me on how initially when the pandemic happened and schools were closed and they were called and told to take online education or take the next step. The next step is of course taking everything online. How they were able to really uh, leave no stone unturned, and they assisted every student in whichever manner they could. And my salute goes to these wonderful teachers, and I want to thank them, because even for a person like me who's in the business for 20 years, if all of a sudden overnight I somebody tells me to go online and do everything online, I'll be completely shocked and stunned, and probably I'll take a lot of time to come in terms to that. Overnight, how the teachers were able to train themselves, work very hard, and provide these means, despite their own limitations. They had limitation of space at home. I know a lot of teachers who live in these government accommodations, which are one bedroom accommodations, or probably very small 1 BHKs. They live with joint families. They live with in conditions where to get a proper place to teach is not easy sometimes, and abundance of workload. So imagine all the workload has now come to you. You can't even go to the school, and then presence of family members at home. When you are at home, of course, the family members will demand something or the other. They would something coming from the children, from the husband. No outside help because of the pandemic. A lot of teachers and a lot of educationists were not able to get any outside help. They had to do their own chores. They had to take care of their families, cook, do everything. Of course, their husbands, I'm sure, helped them. The children helped them in the chores. But still, if you see how challenging it is, that the teachers were able to show a great level of perseverance. And kudos to these teachers. I really salute them for these efforts. But teachers now should be really prepared and trained further for the virtual programs, for digital workshops, for online certification courses. I think not only will this help them in their respective field, they will be able to diversify into a lot of other things. So I feel that the government should be able to provide them wonderful courses, international courses, if they can provide them with on this online development, digital workshop, online training. Then I feel that the teachers will be able to create a lot of value in their own life. And going forward, technology should be used in recruiting these new educationists who will be able to tackle things online and offline. So I know I've talked a lot about this and that happening in the future, but if you see a lot of parts of the world, these things are already happening. And one of the most wonderful thing about the democratization of education will be that students will have an access to a lot of international teachers also. So there are a lot of wonderful professors and teachers all around the world who are masters in their field, where techniques are very offbeat, but they have been able to produce the best students all over the world. So the online education is the only means, I believe, where the government of India, or the education department, or the entire education field in India can collaborate with these people online and have these uh, guest sessions, guest lectures, have these short courses where children can learn a lot. So one of the things that I really propose is that now in future, a lot of jobs are going to there's a lot of job laying that will happen because of the crisis. A lot of children should be encouraged to be entrepreneurs, to find out ways and means to steer around this crisis, and to find out new courses. Like if you see, for example, data is the latest course that is doing a lot of that is getting a lot of you know uh, a lot of children are getting into data, because data is considered the oil of the future. It is considered the most valuable resource in the future. So there are a lot of fields in the future. Like medical field is going to really grow. People are going to become more health conscious after this. So if in a way we can collaborate with these worldwide platforms and bring out these sessions, these courses, these lectures, which can be seen by children all over India. So I feel that's a great opportunity. If you actually look into this, imagine a child sitting in one corner of India, in a remote corner of India, through a smartphone or a screen, or some device, is able to access data or knowledge in a huge university in England or Scotland or US, and learn about the newest ways of entrepreneurship, newest technologies that are coming in, newest disruptive ideas. Imagine that young mind will be able to create, open different windows in his mind. He'll be able to create different ideas in his head. So I feel that this time has actually come. So the pandemic has been able to push us. Uh, Having said all that, online education is, of course, not a very not mentally very healthy. I feel, because when you go to school, you interact with children, you interact with your friends, you learn so much. Like my son, when every time he comes back from school, he learns some new word from his friends, and sometimes these words are very funny and silly, but then I feel that his vocabulary is growing. He's able to grow his experience. He's able to learn people skills, show social skills. So Sapnaji, one of the things that I'm really worried about is children getting into some sort of a mental blockage, or some children getting depressed or frustrated because they've not been able to meet their friends. I, for one, have created these little small groups, Zoom groups for my son. So he and his friends sometimes get together on Zoom and share things that they've done, what they've eaten. They should show their toys to each other and stuff. So I think a lot of parents can do that, where they can really take a initiative of helping their children connect with their friends, because it's very healthy. After this pandemic is over, I feel the government, the schools will have to really work very hard in terms of finding ways to help children come back to normal. I feel that psychologists, I feel that child behavioral therapists, they will have play a major role, because if you really want to see the future of a country, start from our children. And our children have, of course, become very strong because of the pandemic. They've been able to go through one crisis. A crisis really brings courage in you and joy in you, but it also brings a lot of social, psychological issues. So I feel that should be tackled. Uh, if you see the recent studies that are happening, they're showing that uh, in the coming years, uh, I think institution will adopt this technology very fast. People have got the taste of online education. People who are working from home, a lot of corporates are saying that they will have now developed a system where people will only require to come for a few days to work, and most of the days they'll be able to do it from there. And the corporates will be able to save a lot of resources. So if you see the latest studies, they are saying online future is going to stay. It is not. If we feel that once
Sure.
the vaccine comes, pandemic goes away, the people are going to be back to normal. I think we're fooling ourselves, because we have got a taste of something which is even more efficient, even more wonderful, and we'll get used to it. Initially, when a lot of online education platforms came up, people thought they'll not work. But if you see internationally, online platforms have been able to bring enormous, enormous value to people's lives. Um then
Definitely.
I, yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
Now, I was saying ki definitely this we have to think about like the online future is going to be happen. We
Yeah.
have to adopt this thing.
Yeah, so I am very much in the favor of the hybridized way that I've been talking since the beginning, where you will have classes on certain days or at certain slots, but most of the work will be taken online, and the children will be able to carry their stuff, carry their work anywhere. So ours will be very flexible. So one of the biggest benefits would be that the parents would get an opportunity to uh, encourage their children more. Children will get an opportunity to save a lot of time traveling and studying. And because it will be technology based, so one of the greatest benefits of technology is that while using technology, we can use a lot of algorithms, we can use a lot of data. The future is all data. So if you see, there is an enormous amount of data for any human being that is out there. So the companies and the corporates and other institutions know about the tastes, likings, the psychology of a client or a customer through data. In the same way, through the data can be used to produce good education systems and platforms, totally catering to different aspects and different sides of education system. So children can be given uh, customized courses where they can bring out their best. So I'm myself, I'm a Buddhist practitioner. I've been practicing Buddhism for almost 12 13 years now. And so my mentor is Dr. Daiso Ikeda, and he's worked very hard on education field. He's somebody who really values humanistic education. So when I study him, the same thing comes to my mind, is that education has a very profound mission in society. And in his view, I would just quote him. He says that not simply the transmission of knowledge, it is not simply the development of talent. Education is a great enterprise of steadily and securely passing on the fullness of humanity. Education is a process of becoming fully human. So according to him, the development of humanistic, nurturing society largely depends on humanistic orientation of education. Our education, of course, education is a business also for a lot of people. And I feel that's great because uh, as a business, this is one business where you can create enormous goodness. Uh, I really feel that now when I met my principal, my junior school principal after almost 20, 25 years. And she recognized me. And she recognized me, and the first thing she did was she pulled my ear and she said, "Oh, you were so naughty, you broke the window pane once." And she was so joyous to see me becoming what I am today. I could see the pride and joy in her life. And I just realized that because of these educationists, they cared about us. I remember once she walked all the way to my house, met my parents just to discuss this aspect of me getting into some brawl with someone, and how she was able to talk to my parents and understand what is happening with me, and how she was able to really address that issue. And since that day in my life, I've never had that kind of situation again. Is because the way she made me understand why violence is not necessary, why violence is in fact killing an evil with another evil and creating more evil. And that is why we require mentors in our life. Teachers are those wonderful mentors. I really feel that teachers should be given all sorts of subsidies, all sorts of facilities, all sorts of support that they can get, because the humanity directly depends on these wonderful teachers. It is only because of my
Yeah.
wonderful teachers I still remember them by name. Imagine after 20, 30 years, I'm a middle-aged guy now, 20, 30 years of my life, I have remembered them. I've been in touch with them now thanks to Facebook and Instagram and other platforms. I've been able to be in touch with them, and they see me growing and I see them growing with their families. I feel so nice, getting being in touch with my teachers. They had put so much effort. I trust me, I was a very difficult case to teach me. Was I really understand now when I'm teaching my son. It is so difficult to teach a child and takes a lot of patience and perseverance, enormous patience. To handle one child is so difficult in the house. Imagine handling a class of 50 students, and then ensuring that they get quality education, ensuring that their needs are taken care of. Another thing that I really feel
Yeah.
online education, Sapnaji, will bring is that there's a whole concept which I feel is a very negative concept of a backbencher and a front bencher. There are students who are considered backbenchers, and trust me, I was considered a backbencher once, and I've done pretty well. So there is this whole stigma attached to being a backbencher. That will go away once the online classes and the hybrid classes start, because there will be no backbenchers, there will be no front benchers, there will be children who will be getting equal amount of education. The core point, again, I'm coming back to, again and again and again, I'm coming back to, is to democratize the education. Don't let just few children get world class education and a few children settle down for regular education. Education is education. Education is absolutely necessary. Any kind of education is sacred, but everybody has the right to the latest education that is there, the latest cutting edge education that is there, latest education which enhances their life for better, prepares them for future. Future is very uncertain. There, because of the disruption that we are talking about, every day one industry dies and a new industry comes up. If you're only focused on living on one industry, and a child is only trained for one aspect of life, he will find it very difficult to cope up with the future. Whereas if he's given a very valuable, wide-ranging education, he'll be able to handle it better. So, in the words of my mentor, he says the heart of education exists in the
Yeah.
process of teacher and pupil learning together. So it is a two-way process. When a teacher teaches a child, the teacher also
Yeah.
takes back a lot of love, affection, goodwill, good
Yeah.
fortune,
Yeah.
and of course, the teacher learns back too. Sometimes teaching others is the best way to learn yourself. The teacher draw force the pupil's potential and raising the pupil to eventually surpass the teacher. So I think हर गुरु की एक मंशा होती है कि मेरा जो disciple है वो मुझसे भी आगे निकल जाए. I think that is the heart of every
बिल्कुल.
teacher. I'm sure you
हर
can
गुरु ये
understand to this.
चाहता है.
Ji. So coming back to
Yes.
all that
Yes.
I've said, and
Yes.
I've taken up a lot of wide topics, but the core of my
Yeah.
entire thing was we have to now embrace this change and be so wise that we are able to use this change to create a better society. So I am telling this to all the parents who are listening to this, all the educationists, wonderful educationists, and I bow down to them. They are wonderful people. and I have always remembered my teachers, and I want children to always have deep respect for their teachers, that these educationists are doing whatever they can to ensure that you people have a wonderful life. What you need to do now is you people to quickly stand up and take and charge of this new world that is going to create. So the world is not going to be the same after the pandemic. And the most disruptive way to study would be to create a hybrid system where you can study online and offline and study the best material that is available in the world. And for the educationists, the government, it is very important, necessary for them to create these platforms. Now the world has become so small that I can talk to my cousin living in the US every day. Yeah, almost every day. I can talk to a friend living in Spain and share my ideas with him. My wife talks to a friend in Australia and share recipes. Why not, through the same platform, talk to the greatest teachers in the world and take out the biggest amount of knowledge? And I'm sure they'll be happy to oblige, because the greatest joy of a teacher is to share the knowledge and get and see the gratitude in the eye of children. This is what I wanted to talk about disruptive education. If there is any questions, Apna, definitely you can put forward. But currently,
Yeah,
all,
sure.
yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Thank you so
please.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions. It was posted in the box only by
Yeah.
Gaurav Shrivastava. That is a huge quantity of unawareness about digital education in our nation. Have to be student get virtual classes. So how
So
can
that is,
we just yeah,
yeah. So that is what I was trying to address earlier also. And I think he's asked a very, very relevant question. Again, addressing to this question, we will have to create uh, awareness, because it is a great way of not putting in a lot of resources and yet creating the world class education. So there is no other way now. Because of social distancing, we will not expect the schools to work again. So one question is, what is the way? Of course, one is that every education institute has to really start training their teachers for online education. Two, that they have to ensure and collect data where how many students they feel will not be able to access a smartphone or a device. Yeah. Three, they should be able to collaborate with a lot of universities around them, a lot of institutes, a lot of government organizations, to find out new ways and means to reach out to such children. A lot of NGOs have started creating these classrooms where they go to these clusters and they are creating these little classrooms where children can come and study or have a live streaming. I feel this should be encouraged more. Government of India should, like I said again, should provide subsidized devices to such children, devices which can only be used for education, so that they are not stolen, they are not misused, because they only have a certain way to, certain mission or a certain use. At the same way, creating data availability, cheap data and faster data. So now we are, going towards 5G. So how the government can bring fast 5G cheap data to every corner, nook and corner of the world, of the country, sorry, every nook and corner of places where you can't get data otherwise. So a system where internet can reach at least 98, 97% of the people. Second, uh,
yeah,
where they can specially create subsidized courses and free courses and free ways and means for teachers to learn and imbibe more. Also, uh, I feel that a lot of NGOs are out there who are ready to help in this. So how we can use their expertise in terms of online training, online courses. We can develop these little online education platforms where we can access freely these courses and these avenues. And and then the last part of, again, goes back to the government, how government can really go out and help in this initiative, because in a longer run we are going to save a lot of money, we are going to save a lot of resources, we are going to save a lot of time, and what we'll get in return would be world class education, world class training, world class ideas, world class entrepreneurs will be developed, and children, and one very important aspect would be that we'll be able to address the psychological issues of children. So imagine if we can have a session of happiness online where a child can just be at home and study. At the same time, we can have some small sessions for parents also, where the parents can also sit along with them, and maybe a better parent-child communication
Yeah.
can be developed. So the onus lies not only
Sure.
on the government, the onus lies on us, how we stand up
Us.
and put our voices across.
Sure.
That is very important. Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wonderful answer also. And so many, we have got so many ideas from you to how to motivate our employees also, motivate our children, motivate our parents towards the digital future.
Yeah.
So wonderful. And I'm thankful to Dr. Sunita Gandhi ma'am, who is the founder of GETI, for giving me opportunity to host you such an eminent speaker. And we would again like to be with you in some other session because we are getting so much from you. So we also, in future also, we would like to you to have as a guest speaker for us and sharing your views on other topics also. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to wrap up the
I
session.
am,
Thank,
thank you so much, extremely grateful. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sapna.